Okay, guys, I want us please to go to the second note that I handed in the the other day. The one that says finding the point at which a graph cuts the axes. All right, so I'll show you now what it looks like, what we told in the first note. There's the second one. We're going to be talking about points where the graph will cut the axes. All right, so I think you should remember from our note that we wrote the other day, we said, this was the note that we wrote, right? We said that the C value is a constant term in an equation of a straight line. That will always give you the y-intercept. Now, if you want to add to that little note there, the y-intercept is the point where the graph, if you can't fit it in there, it's fine. We're going to do it on a different note now as well. The point where the graph cuts the y-axis, that is the y-intercept. Okay, now on this note, we're just going to read through it, the page that I handed out, and we're going to underline some things, or we can highlight some things. All right, so in the heading, where it says, finding the points at which a graph cuts the axes, these points we are actually going to call intercepts. Okay, so you can just add that in. And then they're actually explaining underneath this heading the two types of intercepts that we're going to have. We're going to have a y-intercept, which we have already discussed. Okay, we're going to underline some stuff there. And then there's also the x-intercept. We remember that in our Cartesian plane, we have an x-axis and a y-axis. All right? A straight line will have to cut through both of them. It will have to cut through or go through the x-axis, and it will have to go through the y-axis. Okay, that's why we have two intercepts. So we can just underline some stuff here. Just underline, or if you want to highlight, that's also fine. The y-intercept, that's the first one. That is what we have actually spoken about already. That is the constant term in your equation. So this is the point at which a graph cuts the y-axis. Okay, the y-intercept is where the graph cuts the y-axis. Does that make sense? Y-intercept is where the line goes through the y-axis, that point. Since this point is on the y-axis, it has an x-coordinate of 0. That is important. Let's underline that, please. A y-intercept always has an x-coordinate of 0. Hence, to find this point, you simply make x equal to 0 and solve for y. Okay, we're going to do examples of that just now. So they're saying if you have your equation, right? In your equation, if you make x equal to 0 and you then work out what y is, that will be your y-intercept. Or we said already the other day, it can also just be your c value in that equation. Yes. Are you looking at the first paragraph or the second paragraph? Does the first one say the y-intercept? Which tape? So you're saying it says make y equal to 0. It should say make x equal to 0. Okay, are we fine with that, guys? We are going to practice that now, okay? But let's just recap. Y-intercept is where the line goes through the y-axis. It always has an x value of 0. So to find it, we have two options. Either it's just going to be the c value, or we're going to make x equal to 0 and then solve. Okay, we'll do examples of that just now. For the x-intercept, that is where the line cuts the x-axis. Right, so on the flat axis, wherever the line goes through that axis at that point, we call that point the y-intercept. And this point will always have a y coordinate of 0. But to find that point, there is actually only one option. We don't have two ways of finding it, like with the y-intercept. To find the x-intercept, we're going to have to make y equal to 0 and solve for it. Okay, I want us to actually write down a little note in our workbooks, all right, where we're going to have a picture as well, because it's a bit difficult to understand if it's just all in words. Okay, so just underneath the homework or wherever you have some space, we're going to just write a little note on finding intercepts with the axes. That's going to be the heading. Okay, we're going to draw a rough sketch. You don't have to draw it to any kind of scale. We're just going to draw our Cartesian plane over here. All right, and you can just plot any 2 points there. Don't worry about any kind of scale. It doesn't matter. All right, I'm just putting a point on my first line, and then I'm doing another point on the x-axis. Then I'm going to draw a line going through those 2 points like that. And I'm just going to label these 2 points. So guys, it doesn't matter what scale you worked with. Okay, we are just labeling the points. And you can just write those 2 points there for me, please. 0, 2, and then 3, 0. And we need to also just do our axes correctly. We must put our y and our x, and then we have to label the origin. Okay, please remember you have to do that every time you are drawing a graph. Now guys, this point, 0, 2, do we see that this point lies on the y-axis? It is where our line cuts the y-axis. So this point is called the y-intercept. Now, like they said in that paragraph, the stuff that we just underlined, they say that a y-intercept will always have an x value of 0. Now, guys, if we're just looking at this point, if we have to read this point off, we would say, okay, the y value obviously is 2, it's written there, but the x value is 0, right? It's in line with 0 on the x-axis. And it doesn't matter where on the y-axis we had a point, that point would always have an x value of 0, because if it's anywhere on the y-axis, it's always in line with 0 on the x-axis. Do you guys see that? All right, so that is why your y-intercept will always have an x value of 0. So just write there where x is equal to 0. Okay, that will always happen, guys. Your y-intercept will always have an x value of 0. The other point that we have here, the point 3, 0, do we see that this point lies on the x-axis? It's where the line goes through the x-axis at 3. Okay, so this point would be the x-intercept. It's the point where the line goes through the x-axis. And like they said in that paragraph, we underlined it, an x-intercept will always have a y value of 0. Because again, guys, wherever a point is on this line, it doesn't matter, okay? If you have a point that lies on the x-axis, it will always have a y value of 0. Whether it's over here, whether it's close to the 0 there, all right, it will always have a y value of 0. So you can remember that as well. An x-intercept, a point on the x-axis, will always have a y value of 0. Okay, so that's just a graphical representation of what we just underlined. Okay, we're going to do an example quickly, guys, where I'm going to give you an equation and we are going to calculate the x and the y intercepts. All right, so for example, if y is equal to 3x plus 2, that is the equation. Now, guys, remember what we wrote down on Wednesday? The standard form of a straight line equation is y equals mx plus c. Do we remember that? Y equals mx plus c. We said that m is the gradient. We're still going to talk about that later on. But c, we said, is always the y-intercept. Now, what is my c value in this equation? 2, hey, remember c is the constant term, the one that doesn't have an x attached to it. So m is the number in front of x, so we can see that here m is 3, all right, but c is 2, the y-intercept. Okay, so we're going to calculate the two intercepts and then we're actually going to draw the graph, guys. You'll see how easy it is to draw a graph. If you have the two intercepts, that's all you need to draw it. Okay, so y-intercept. We're going to do our two methods, all right? The one is that the c value, the constant term, is your y-intercept. So we're just going to say that y is equal to 2, and that is coming from the c value. All right, so your y-intercept will be 2. That's why I'm saying y equals 2, okay, because it's a y-intercept is 2, and that is coming from the c value. Now, guys, we need to normally write the coordinates down. Okay, what did we say up here? A y-intercept always has an x value of 0. So the coordinates will be 0, 2. Okay, you don't have to calculate that x value. You need to know a y-intercept always has an x value of 0. Okay, the y value, the 2, that is what you're getting. What was the other method that they said? Look at what we underlined in the paragraph. How else can we find the y-intercept? It's not on the board, it's in your books. So we've done the c value, but there's another method of finding it. We can make x equal to 0. All right, we can make x equal to 0. Guys, the reason for that is because a y-intercept always has an x value of 0. So in our equation, if we put a 0 where x is, that will give us our y-intercept as well. All right, so that's one method, just looking at the c value, or make x equal to 0. Just write that down. That's the second method that we're going to practice now. So in our equation, we're going to say y is equal to 3x, but now we're making x equal to 0 because we know at a y-intercept the x value is always 0. So we make x 0 in our equation. So it's 3 times 0 plus 2. What's that, guys? What's 3 times 0? 0 plus 2? 2. All right, so we get the same value as if we had just looked at the c value. All right, so you can always make x equal to 0 in your equation, and that will then give you the y value. So once you have your y value, you remember the x value of a y-intercept is always 0, and the y value is the one that we just calculated. Okay, so that's something to remember, guys. For your y-intercept, always make x equal to 0. Okay, and then calculate it. For the x-intercept, we're going to go the other way around. What did we say up here on the picture? The x-intercept is the point where y is always 0. So to get the x-intercept in our equation, we're going to make y equal to 0. And then we'll have to solve for x from there. Okay, so where we have y equals 3x plus 2, we're now going to make y equal to 0. In our equation, right? So instead of y equals 3x plus 2, we're going to say 0 equals 3x plus 2. Now, what must I do with this 2 if I want to get x on its own? I must move it, hey? What is plus 2 going to become? Minus 2. So I'm going to have negative 2 is equal to 3x. And then to get x on its own, on this side, I'm multiplying x by 3. What's the opposite of multiplying by 3? Dividing by 3. So I'm going to get negative 2 over 3. That is going to be my x value, my x-intercept. Okay, so finding the x-intercept is a bit more difficult than the y-intercept. The y-intercept is very simple. You just make that 0, and then you can just get your answer. For the x-intercept, you're going to have to move some stuff around. Okay. Now, guys, what did we say? If we have to write the coordinates, if we have to write down the actual point, because what we've done here, we're just saying what x is. Okay, we need to say what the x and the y value of the point is. Our x value is negative 2 over 3. And what is the y value of an x-intercept always? 0. Now, guys, like I said on Wednesday, the lines that we drew on Wednesday, we plotted a bunch of points and then we connected them. Okay, but remember I said that we actually only need 2. As long as we have 2 points, we can draw our line. Now, guys, the 2 points that you need to find are your x and your y intercept. All right, so that is what you're going to do when you have to draw a straight line. If they're giving you the equation, you're going to calculate your y-intercept, you're going to calculate your x-intercept, then you're going to draw your Cartesian plane and you're going to plot only these 2 points, and then we're going to connect them. All right, so let's do that, guys. We're going to draw a small Cartesian plane here. If you have enough space, you can squeeze it in. Otherwise, you might have to do it underneath. So I'm just going to, let me just check here. Our y value here is 2. So it does have to go up to, so I'm going to do 3 and 3. All right, just like that. And then across, I am just going to do, yeah, I'm only just going to fit in 3 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. If you have a block book, that's fine. You can obviously work with the blocks. I'm just working with lines on my y-axis. So I'm going 3 to negative 3, all right? So 6 lines altogether. And then I'm doing 3 centimeters and 3 centimeters. Okay, now, like I said, we only have to plot these 2 points. All right, so on the y-axis, our point is 0, 2. The y-intercept is at 2. So the y-intercept is at 2. All right, 0 on the x-axis, so it's in line with 0, and 2 on the y-axis. That is the y-intercept. Okay, I'm going to write the coordinates down just now. The other point that we have is this x-intercept at negative 2 over 3. Now, guys, negative 2 over 3, you don't have to plot it exactly where it will be. All right, it's kind of there, I suppose. All right, because that's 0, that's negative 1. Negative 2 over 3 is just before negative 1. All right, negative 2/3. Then you're going to take your ruler. You're going to line it up with those 2 points. You're going to connect them, and you're just going to extend the line slightly past your points, and that is your straight line. That's all you need to do. You just always, please, have to label the points that you've plotted, okay? So you have to say 0, 2 next to your y-intercept. Remember, 0, 2. And next to your x-intercept, you have to put -2/3 and 0. Okay, say again. So that's 0, that's -1. So I did it like 2/3 towards -1. Because -2/3 is smaller than -1. Okay, guys. Hi. No problem. About? Oh, I was wondering which was his name. Okay.
Can I ask you? Sorry to interrupt. If they said 26, 27, 28, would you give one of them? None. For even and then odd, this is correct. Can I give them one from the other two? I would actually give none.
Yeah, probably none.
Sorry.
That's fine. So, okay, are we fine with that, guys? So from now on, whenever you're drawing a straight line, there are some cases where you can't get 2 points here, but we'll get to those later on. If they're asking you to draw a straight line, this is what you're going to do. Okay, you're going to find your y-intercept by making x equal to 0. You're going to find your x-intercept by making y equal to 0. You're going to plot those 2 points, and then that is your line. Okay, let's go back to this note quickly, the one that I handed out, because there are some examples there that we're also just going to go through together. Okay, so they're saying find the x and y coordinates of the following graphs. Now, guys, that first one, 2x plus 4y equals 8. Does that look like a normal straight line graph? 2x plus 4y equals 8. What should a straight line equation look like? Okay, what's the standard form? Y equals mx plus c. Does this first equation look like that? All right, they're going to do that often. All right, they're going to give you an equation that doesn't look like it should. Then we need to be able to rewrite this equation so that it looks like that. Okay, so if you have some space on the side there. For number 1, we're going to rewrite this equation. Okay, so we have, I'm just going to write it again, 2x plus 4y equals 8. So write that on the side, please. We're going to practice now to change this equation in the way that it's been given to this form. Okay, we have to always do that. We have to work with it in its proper form. Now, guys, the first thing that we notice here is that we have to have y equals to everything else, right? Do we see that? So y must be on its own. So why not just move that 2x to the other side? Our first step, all right? Because we just want the y on its own. So before we worry about the 4 that's in front of that y, let's move the 2x to the other side. Okay, then we're going to have the y term on its own. So we're going to have 4y equals -2x plus 8. If we have a positive 2x and we move it over, it's going to become -2. Right? And there was already a positive 8 there. The only reason why I'm not writing 8 minus 2x is because I want the x term first and then the constant term. Okay, does that make sense? Right, so I'm moving this 2x over, I'm making it -2x, and I want the x term first. Remember, we're trying to get it to this 4. Now, what must I do with this 4? Divide by 4, the whole side, everything on the other side, guys, I have to divide by 4. Okay, so I'm going to say y is equal to, now what is -2 divided by 4? -2 over 4, okay? We can write it like that at first. Okay, so I'm dividing the first term by 4. And then plus 8 over 4, which you can obviously write as 2 straight away. Okay, so I'm just dividing the whole other side by 4, both of the terms are clear. But now we can't leave it like that, right? Those aren't written in their simplest forms. What is 2 over 4? How can I simplify that? 2 over 4 is actually a half, hey? So this is negative a half x plus, what's 8 divided by 4? 2. Okay, so that is what you have to do when you need to write an equation in standard form. Okay, which, yeah, will come quite a lot. Now we're not going to do all of these. We're not going to do number 3 or number 5. So you can just draw a line through those because those aren't actually straight line equations. All right, but we'll do the others. We'll do 1, 2, and 4. Now in this exercise, on these examples, they're saying find the x and y coordinates of each of the following graphs. All right, so for number 1, we have this now. To find the y-intercept, we have to make x equal to 0. Right? Are we fine with that? To find the y-intercept, we have to make x equal to 0. So, yeah, we don't really have a lot of space. Should we maybe just write this on a page? Oh, it's very zoomed in now. Oh, okay. So these are the examples. Sorry, examples. And then we're doing 1. Sorry, there isn't really enough space on the page there. And we've already changed. So the equation that they gave us originally was written like this. And we changed it to this, right? Y equals negative a half x plus 2. Okay, that's what we've done so far. Now we have to find the y-intercept and the x-intercept. That's what they're saying there. Find the x and y coordinates of the following graph. Right, so for our y-intercept, and guys, I want you to write it down like this, please, so that you are following exactly what you're doing. For the y-intercept, we're going to make x equal to 0. So it's always the other one that you make equal to 0, right? For your y-intercept, you're going to make x equal to 0. In our equation, we have to use the equation. That's the only way to do it. So you're going to say y is equal to negative a half times 0, right? So wherever we have x, we now make that 0 plus 2. And we all know that negative a half multiplied by 0 is just 0 plus 2 is just 2. So our y-intercept is 0, 2. The point 0, 2. X is 0, y is 2. Okay, now we're going to find the x-intercept. And to find that, we have to make y equal to 0. The other one. Right, if we're finding the x-intercept, we make the other letter, the y equal to 0. In our equation, so we're going to say 0 because it was y equals, and I can say 0 equals negative a half x plus 2 . Okay, I want to get rid of that plus 2. What does it become when I move it over? Minus 2. What's 0 minus 2? Negative 2. Hey, so we have negative 2 equals negative a half x. And now on the right-hand side there, I'm multiplying x by negative a half. So when I move it, I have to divide by negative a half. So I'm going to say negative 2 divided by negative a half. You can write it out like that because this is a tricky one. All right, then you can try and do that in your head by doing tip and times, but you can also just type it into the calculator. All right, what is a negative divided by a negative? We should know that at least. A positive. Okay, so you can just type into the calculator 2 divided by a half. How many halves are there in 2, guys? 4, hey? How many halves are there in 1? 2. So in 2, there will be 4 halves. But you can also just type it into the calculator. So then you will get that x is equal to 4. But important, guys, we have to practice this. We need to now write it in point form, obviously now. Our x value is 4 and our y value is 0. Good. So the coordinates are 4, 0. Yes, Hannah? You do have to do a test sometime next term, yes, but I don't know, it's too far in the future. We need to know the date and so on. Okay, we're fine with that one. Number 2. Now this one is a bit easier because they gave you the equation in the correct form. Y equals 3x minus 4. Then we have to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. All right, I tend to do the y-intercept first because it's easier. All right, but you can do the x-intercept first if you want. It's completely up to you. So y-intercept, make x equal to 0. So in our equation, y is equal to 3 times 0 minus 4. Instead of 3 times x minus 4, we make it 3 times 0 minus 4. What is 3 times 0, guys? 0 minus 4 is then negative 4. Okay, so point form, coordinate form, what is the x value of this point? 0. We wrote it there, hey? Make x equal to 0. So my x value is 0, okay? And my y value is negative 4. So that is the point. That is the y-intercept. Yes. What are you asking? After you found it, do you have to write this? Yes. Okay, x-intercept. We're going to make y equal to 0. So in our equation, we make y 0. So we're going to say 0 is equal to 3x minus 4. So instead of y equals 3x minus 4, we say 0 equals 3x minus 4. Okay, the minus 4, I'm going to have to move. It's going to become positive 4. So we have 0 plus 4 is just 4. All right, and that is equal to 3x. And now on the right-hand side there, I'm multiplying x by 3. The opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. So I'm going to have to say 4 over 3 is then equal to x. Or you can write it the other way around. That's also fine. You said x equals 4 over 3. Can I simplify that fraction, guys? No, you can write it as 1 and a third if you want, okay, but you don't have to, that's fine to leave it like that. So let's write our coordinates. The x value is 4 over 3, the y value is 0. Okay, I'm actually not going to do number 4 with you. I think we've done enough practice now. For homework for Monday, I am going to give you investigations back now, but you can start working on this so long, and after we've looked at them, your homework is going to be the exercise on this worksheet, on this note. All right, they've given you an exercise there. I'm just going to look through it. I'm going to cross out some of them. 3 of them I'll show you now. So homework is exercise on note. So in that exercise, they're saying find the x and y intercepts of each of the following graphs. All right, so you're going to do the same thing here. You're going to write the equation down. If the equation isn't written in the correct form, you're going to have to change it first. Okay, just like we did over here. By getting the y on its own and then dividing through by everything or whatever is in front of the y. Okay, so this is the exercise that I'm referring to, guys. You're going to do this one. I want you please to leave out number 3, leave out number 6, and number 10. Okay, so you can leave out 3, 6, and 10. The ones that you're going to have to change first, I'm going to make a star next to those. That's number 2. So we see that in number 2, it's not written in the correct form. We need y equals our x term and our constant term. So here to get y on its own, we're going to have to move this positive 2x to the other side. Okay, so you must do that first, please. The stuff that I did in blue over here. There. Okay, I'll leave that on the board like that. Then in number 5, you're going to have to move this x as well. In number 7, you're going to have to fix that. And in number 9. Okay, so you're first writing them in the correct form, in standard form, and then you're finding the x and y intercept. Okay, I'll leave that on the board so that you can look at it. Just quickly going to hand out the investigation.